Well, it's finally here. The entire 1000 THR Earthmover. So, welcome back to another video on Gearsaw Studios. And today I'm going to be showing you how to build yourself the entire Earthmover. It is roughly to scale. Some parts are a little messed up, it's a little stretched, and it's a little too symmetrical. So of course, minor things like this town missing a few buildings on the side will be present, but otherwise it is mostly accurate and has been meticulously examined for accuracy, down to even adding pale wood buttons. So without further ado, let's discuss a few details about it because of course this is really large and pre-built, and then how to build this, because it's quite obvious I can't just give instructions on how to build this. Right here we have the Earthmover itself standing at roughly 176 blocks tall, makes it the largest tutorial I've ever done in terms of height, not necessarily in footprint. Thanks, road. But anyways, if you don't care for this stuff, well, timestamp on screen for the beginning of the tutorial itself. But you know, this build is really large, it warrants at least some detailing. As for its scale, well, I didn't choose any specific scale, I just kind of eyeballed it. For reference, here is my player model. As you can see, well, the Earthmover is pretty large. So anyways, if we look around, well, the legs are a little further apart than they're supposed to be, but otherwise a lot of things are pretty accurate. A few pieces of the city were cut off, but all these buildings here have been accurately recreated, down to even this little piece here, which some of you might know. But anyways, we have the yellow hook point here being an ultra frog light. The secret exit is, well, not exit, but entrance is not necessarily present, but you could easily build it just by copying stuff on this leg. And then these aren't going to open, but you could hypothetically open them by simply just copying the shape and, well, opening them. Then this stuff has been specifically adjusted for parkour, so that way if you were to build these flaps open, then you could jump across. And then, well, everything else is usually quite scalable. Some things like the tops of its shoulders are completely done. The front, well, that's done. Even things like the window there, and even the power plant. Yep, that's right there as well. So technically, if you were to use a world download, which will be available upon request, well, you could technically turn this into a completely playable map. It even has a kinda security system here. You'd have to replace it with real mobs though. And then for the interior, yes, it does exist. The giant red cave inside of it is completely done with lodestones and end rods representing the idols. If you're watching this at time of release, basically, I know it costs netherite, but they're changing it to iron in the next update, so it will be quite affordable in the future, especially since you're going to be building with chains. The chains are going to be more expensive than the lodestone. Then the neck, well, I tried my best. Of course, well, the Earthmover is actually slightly bigger on the inside than on the outside on very select portions. Basically, the walls being more than 1 block thick kind of makes it really hard. So you can't spin around the brain like you do in the game, but otherwise, almost everything else is accurate, down to even things like the wires, the buttons being the lights, things like that. So now let's get into the tutorial. Also, I did include the hat. So basically, this is too hard to demonstrate. Well, I mean, look, this is a near 1-for-1 model of a pre-existing structure at 1/3 scale. So it's very hard to just give blatant instructions. Thus, I will provide layers. Essentially, I'm going to show images with little descriptions, and it's going to be every single layer of this build. So that way, you can go around, build every block on one layer, and then go up to the next. It's a little time consuming, but it ensures a perfect quality Earthmover. Although, you might have a few lost blocks due to inefficiencies like, you know, scaffolding and such. But still, it should be really useful for building something as large as this without taking up more than an hour. I mean, you can look at the video time, it's not going to be that long. In order to make sure that you have the proper dimensions, I'm just going to flash the coordinates on the bottom of the screen, and then you can copy these two, well, 4 parts. And these are the feet. Technically, if you wanted to go deeper, you could use this reference image in order to build the hook-shaped foot of the Earthmover. But anyways, here would be the dimensions for how far the feet are from each other. You can count the blocks, or you can use the length on the bottom of the screen. And then once you do this, then we can start going layer by layer. And then all the screenshots will appear, and you can copy one at a time. Alright, well, that was the legs done. You can see we are now up to the body. And the body's going to be a bit more difficult because there's so much going on. I made a few minor mistakes, mainly just accidentally not going up one during one of the later clips, and maybe not correctly detailing this part, but otherwise, you can pause and take a look at anything you've missed. Mainly just the cables and whatever these, like, fluid dispersal valves are. I can't figure out what these really are. All I know is that they're connected to the back of the Earthmover. Their interiors aren't very important. And then from here, you're going to have, well, a little bit more difficult of a time most likely, because you're going to have to manage the city and the interior at the same time. So there's going to be a lot going on. However, once you get past that part, then you'll be left to the neck. And the neck is pretty easy, there's not much going on, and quite a few bits are already hollow, simply just because of, well, how Minecraft works. So, when you go up, you're going to have an exponentially easier time, although the cables might still be difficult. Luckily, those will continue to be labeled and in a more efficient fashion from here on out. So now, it's time for the body. With a few extra deep slate tiles right here, and specifically right here, well, we now have the vast majority of the Earthmover done. And you can see we have the wires going across, and pretty much anything below this height has been included. Also, right here, you can see the completed interior. Might be slightly laggy because I have to do this with my video editor open, and you can see that was a lot of screenshots. So, sorry about that. But anyways, now we have to work on the neck and the giant lance. And that's going to be a little bit weird to do, but fortunately, the iron bars here are relatively simplistic. We just need them to coat the walls. If in doubt, just surround the walls with them. And then we can go to the vertical view for the rest of the Earthmover. Well, we've now constructed the Earthmover, and there's a few blocks missing. However, we know what layer we're at currently, and it would be easier to just show you rather than try doing that time-lapse method because, well, it takes like 1 or 2 minutes for every single layer to create that. It's actually really tough. But anyways, starting from there, that's the yellow. Then you can just look around this in order to get the exact measurements. As you can see, not super complex. And now we've reached the top. We have the Ultra Frog Light, and now there's just a few final things. You might have noticed some blackstone and gotten confused. This is a pressure plate. Yes, surprisingly, blackstone pressure plates are a thing. This is a tiny little hat that he wears in-game, and it should be appearing on screen right now. Then there are a few buttons I missed because, well, they are buttons. They are very easy to miss. So right here towards the head is where I missed a lot of them, and here's where they are. And you can compare the surrounding blocks because if you built this perfectly, then they should be in the exact positions as you'd think they'd be. So like one block between these diagonally on the front, there is one right here, one block below the eye. And then on this side, you can see two right below this 2x2 clump of wire, one between these wires, stuff like that. And then you will have a completed Earthmover. And yeah, well, it's a giant centaur robot. I'm not entirely sure what more you want. And now there are two of them in my world, which is kind of ridiculous. But still, two giant centaur robots is certainly a force to be reckoned with. And if you want to do anything regarding the lance, well, there's not actually too much you can do necessarily. What I recommend is just a little bit of white concrete around it in order to make it look like lightning is coming off of it. And you can even have it all broken down like that, or you can use some white glass panes like this in order to make it appear sharper. And you don't want it to be completely solid, it can't be completely even, and it needs to come off the thing itself a little bit. You can do this on every side in order to make it a bit more interesting, and if you do this cone shape, then you will have one of the charged lances. With that charged lance here, well, you now have the completed Earthmover, and thus it's the end of today's video. If you enjoyed this video, remember, please like and subscribe, it really helps me out. Of course, this took a long time to build. I've been spending pretty much all my free time trying to finish this up because, well, it was voted in a poll. If you're interested in more Ultrakill Minecraft content, well, you can check out my 7.3 cemetery, which, as I'm saying this now, is built before the giant revamp update. If for some reason 7.3 changes after the big revamp that's now reached to layer 6 out of the 2 layers they're planning to do, well, it might be a little inaccurate. But either way, enjoy the rest of your day. Gearsaw out.